coach Paul Rodio right now. Coach, I want to get to so many of the great things that your team accomplished this year, but let's start with the finish. I know it was a tough loss in that state championship game a week ago against Don Bosco, and I talked about this off the top. Sometimes it's tough for high school kids to get up after a game and sort of talk to the media, but I thought your kids handled it with such class. What did you tell that group in the locker room? Because like I said, you guys had big expectations this year, and maybe coming up a little bit short. You wanted to win that state championship, but what did you have to say to that group after that game?
Well, first of all, thank you, Michael. And I think you have to begin to practice what you preach. And we try to tell our kids that we're a different kind of group, and if you're going to walk that line and take credit for when things go well, you have to be able to stand there in the line of fire and take when things don't go well. So I think they respected that, and they knew that, and it didn't go our way, but they were going to stand up and do that. And we're not an excuse group, and I told them we're not going out there making excuses. The lights, the ball was slippery, the refs, the crowd. We lost because we got beat by a better team on that night, and we had a bad first half. And we did everything we could to try to fight ourselves back in it, but it didn't work out for us, and we'll move on and be the better person for it after that. That's what I told them.
27-2 this year, and you mentioned it there. I mean, I've seen you guys play a number of times this year, and it was just, I guess, unfortunate is the word, the way your team performed in that first half. But as poorly as you guys played there, you really flipped the script and played so well in the second half. What did you see out of your team? What sort of fire and fight did you see out of your team in the second half, especially like a guy from Austin, Kennedy, who scored 22 points, all of them in the second half, to claw your way back?
Well, first of all, we had played so well down the stretch. We played really well against Bishop Eustace in the South Jersey final. We had played well against Notre Dame, who's a really, really good team from Trenton. And I thought we were on a roll. I thought we were doing it. But just like my boys at Villanova this week, it's so difficult to repeat. You have that bullseye on your back. And I think we beat them so bad the year before that they came out with a vengeance against us, and we just happened to have one of those bad halves where they jumped all over us. At halftime, we went in and we talked about it, and actually Austin and Justin stood up and said to the kids, we don't want it to end this way. If we're going to go down, we're going to go down fighting. And they came out and said, let's just go after it, and they went after it with everything they had. I couldn't be any more proud of that group. Other than the win, someone had told me later, one of our fans had said, when the dust settles, you're going to be as excited about this group losing than you were about other groups that won. And I know what he meant, and I know what it was, because that was a group of kids that just, from day one, bought into what we were doing, from the way the school operates to what we do at practice to how we handle ourselves on game day to what we do during a game. They did everything we wanted to do, and it came up short, and that's how life is. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you're judged on how you handle those days that it doesn't work well. And that's what I told them, and I think they handled themselves properly.
Checking in with Paul Rodio right now on the South Jersey Sports Report, head coach of the St. Augustine Hermits against St. Augustine, 27-2 this season. South Jersey non-public A champs once again. Coach, you hit on an interesting point there again, and I would echo that sometimes the most memorable games aren't necessarily wins, and certainly the way your team played in that second half against Don Bosco. But when you look back, I guess Bishop Eustace, the South Jersey championship game is going to jump out, but even a couple of the other losses that you had this year against the Camden team and against St. Anthony, I mean, those were really exciting games and big-time opponents, and you came out on the losing end, but what did you learn from your team, especially against the St. Anthony squad, and you guys go up there on the road and really give the most storied program in the history of the state everything it wanted?
What you gain is character, and when you start out, and every coach in South Jersey, boys or girls, coaches would tell you the same thing. What you're setting out to do is win games, obviously, but you're also setting out to set up a character for a bunch of young men. If you could get a bunch of guys and you really believe in your heart, when the season ends, whenever the ball stops rolling, that you have a group of 13, 14, 15 kids that are a little bit better people than they were the day you started, then you feel confident that you accomplished something. And I'm 100% confident that I have a group of guys that I was proud of that they did it. So what I learned about my group is that they have character, that's the group of kids you want to be around. They're going to develop Austin Kennedy is going to end up being successful in whatever he does because he's one of those kind of people. Walt Harvey averaged about 4 points a game for me, but he's in a situation where as a kid on my team that had his job was to cover the best player in the other team, and he knew that going in. So when you're playing Bishop Eustace and they have Jesse Saul, who's averaging 18 points a game, had 19 points against Camden when they beat Camden, and we go into the game, and I knew, and Coach Ike and myself looked at each other and said, that kid's not going to have 15 points. He's just not. He ended with 2. And Walt was content with that was his job. He accepted his role. He only scored 7 or 8 points. But he held the best player, and he knew that's what he had to do day in and day out. And he walks away from that feeling successful with our season, even though he didn't accomplish that goal, because he accomplished what he had to do from even that game. He covered the kid who was averaging 16, 17 points, a kid with the same name, Paul, from, I can't think of his first name, from Don Bosco, good best player, but he held him to 2 points.
Yeah, Chris Paul, I think. They had a lot of names that are
Chris
similar
Paul,
to
right.
NBAers, of course. Ron Harper, the son of Ron Harper, and Chris Paul, no relation to Chris Paul. But, yeah, you talked about it. I mean, Chris Paul, I think he fouled out in that game with 2 points.
He did. 2 points, and Walt did it. But that's so when you look at a team and you say, did you really accomplish what you wanted? Yeah. Did we want to win that last game and win last night and still be playing? Yes. So it didn't work our way. But, with everything that we tried to do, these kids graduate there in a couple of months, and they will graduate, very successful seniors. They will have graduated accomplishing most of what they wanted to do, and I couldn't be any more proud of the kids than that.
Certainly St. Augustine dominant in the Cape Atlantic League too, Coach, and I know you had some battles with Atlantic City this season, and based on the way the first 2 games went against AC, I know it was a competitive game at your place, and obviously you won, and then it wasn't so competitive at the Battle by the Bay. It was a big win from your group. Let's go back to that Cape Atlantic League championship game, because that was really, for me, one of the most entertaining games back and forth of the season before the Hermits found a way to pull away at the end. But just the battles against a team like Atlantic City this year, and even in a year where you get the best of them 3 times, I know you really value those matchups against Gene Allen and his team.
No question about it. I mean, that's a class group. He does a great job there. We have a lot of respect for them. And I thought that he had them ready. They knew what they wanted to do in that last game at Stockton. They came out and played better than us in the first half. But again, we went in at halftime and said, this is what we have to do. Let's go out. And whenever I left the locker room with that group, I felt confident that they were going to do what we needed them to do. And I thought in that second half, we said we have a little stretch coming. We have that run. Keep doing what we do. We use the word grind. Keep grinding. Keep playing. Don't let it get away. Keep standing there, and we'll find that run. And we got that run. It only took about 2 minutes or 3 minutes. We went on that 10-0 run, and that was enough to push us over the top, and that's what that group did. And that's the same things we said in the huddle against Don Bosco. Keep grinding. Keep grinding. It's going to go. Okay? Other than a couple foul shots here and there, they would have fallen. What are you going to do? Austin was dead tired, and he has 2 shots to tie the game and send it to overtime with 2 of their best players having fouled out. We felt we had a shot, and Austin obviously didn't want to miss the foul shot, and Justin didn't want to miss the foul shot. If either of those go in, we go to overtime. It wasn't to be. So I would rather be coaching that group of kids that missed those foul shots than anybody else that make the foul shot. So.
Coach, 2 more questions before we let you go. I want to ask about your seniors, the ones graduating, but I'll save that second question for the second question. I'll ask you first about some of the guys you have coming back and how things set up for next year, and certainly Marlon Hargis is a big part of that. He'll be a senior next year. And also a guy, Travis Stoll, a transfer who I thought really came on strong as the season went on, and I guess next year is going to be sort of building around those 2 guys, right? And you've had some nice pieces off the bench, some younger guys that you worked into the rotation this year as well.
Well, we have a JV team that's coming back that's 44-1 in 2 years. Their only loss was to St. Anthony's. So we've been very, very dominant on a JV level for 2 years. So I have a group of kids in there that I think are going to be a very good nucleus of young guys to be able to get it started. If you could bring back a player like, let's take Travis first. Travis is a kid that took some time to adapt into what we're doing and how we were doing it. And by mid-season, when he hit the ground running and doing it, Travis is right in the thick of what we need from him for next year. I think he knows exactly what we have to do he will emerge as a leader with that group, and I think the kids look up to him. Travis Stoll has been everything that we thought he would be, as both a player and a student and a kid walking the halls of St. Augustine. I think Travis will be fine. In Marlin, you have a kid that you're watching blossom into the next big-time South Jersey player. This is a kid that I think is going to be recruited. He already has 2 or 3 or 4 offers on the table in some of the schools that I think are good schools for him because he's a very good student. But I think you're just watching this kid blossom into a big-time player.
And then finally, Coach, before we let you go, I'm not going to ask you to compare this year's group to other years, but I will pose the question this way. The seniors you had, the run that they've had, is that as special as maybe any other team that you've had over the years at St. Augustine?
Obviously, I mean, they accomplished, they won more games, they put themselves in better positions. They haven't lost a Cape Atlantic League game in 3 years. They sat down and knew what they wanted to do and put down in front of them, what they thought had to happen for this to work, and accomplished it as good as any group that I've had, without question. I mean, it was a group that will remain special in my heart and special in St. Augustine. But I think most important for them, it's a group that not just accomplished what they wanted, it's a group that sacrificed. They gave of themselves for us to be successful. Justin wasn't always, sometimes he was looked at, but he wasn't scoring as much. He was willing to play the back of that defense and block shots and rebound and get done for us what had to happen for us to be able to play that type of defense. I just mentioned what Walt had done. Austin did everything but will us to win by himself in that game. He just cut his heart out and threw it out on the floor and did what he had to do. And each one of them, Mickey Amici came off the bench, and Brendan Aldridge, and hit shots and were part of it. And, they definitely will go down in history as a group at St. Augustine that will be, in my heart, special.
Again, an outstanding year from St. Augustine, Cape Atlantic League champs, South Jersey non-public A champs. Head coach Paul Rodio, thanks for taking the time. We'll catch up with you again next season.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything you do for high school basketball. We appreciate it.
All right, my pleasure, Coach. That's Paul Rodio from St. Augustine. We'll take another